Great. Okay, great. That was our first lull.
There we go. All right. That's our first lull of 2017. These fortunately can be edited out later, so we sound snappy.
Oh my.
That's right.
Welcome to AT Banter, the podcast where we discuss anything and everything regarding the world of assistive technology. With our hosts, Steve Barkley, Rob Minot, and Ryan Fleury. Now, let's banter.
Hey, and welcome to a new year, 2017.
Woo.
I know, the excitement is palpable.
It is. The fact that I have a cold isn't helping.
Yeah, I hear you. This, of course, is AT Banter. I am Rob Minot, and today joined once again by Ryan Fleury.
Hey there.
And Steve Barkley.
Good day.
Hey.
And first episode of 2017. We have turned over a new leaf. We are completely reformatting and changing the podcast. And no, just kidding.
And Ryan is not a vegan.
Oh, have you been getting recipes?
No, nobody has sent me one recipe. But I have to clear the air. I am not a vegan, nor will I ever become a vegan. There's nothing wrong with being vegan.
I don't think you can rule that out.
But, I can, because I know if at all possible, before I die, I'm going to have steak wrapped in bacon, cooked in butter. I will not be vegan.
I feel like that exists.
It does.
I feel like you can just get that at Burger King.
I've done that.
And it's delicious.
Yeah, you got to take a few more steps. I mean, you got to have it stuffed in a duck, stuffed in a turkey, stuffed in a chicken.
Wrapped in cheese.
And then deep fried.
Excellent. Sounds like a P&E.
So we're starting 2017 off with a bang. We've got a great guest today. We're talking with Molly Watt, who resides all the way over across the pond, as they say, in the UK. We're going to be talking to her a little bit about her charity and her company.
What'd you get for Christmas?
I got a few things. Very geeky. Bunch of Star Wars paraphernalia, of course. A couple Blu-rays, shirts, underwear, which I put on my list, which made me feel old. I've actually gotten to that age where underwear becomes an item on a Christmas list.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm telling you, 8-year-old me would be horrified at that.
Unless it was Star Wars underwear.
Yeah, and even then, that's pushing. Still clothes. Clothes no good. No bueno.
No.
What about you?
I got a rangefinder, so now I know how far I'm shooting.
Okay, for your gun.
Yeah, as far as gun.
I don't know. It could be arranged.
I guess technically I could use it golfing.
Oh, you know what?
if I wanted to.
You know what? I got that and Pathfinder mixed up. So I was like, you got a Jeep?
That's not even where I was going when you were thinking rangefinder. You said for your gun?
and actually, I did get a Jeep. Didn't I?
You did?
You got a Jeep?
I got a Jeep.
You did?
When?
I bought a used Jeep off a buddy of mine. It's got a big lift on it, so you can take it off in the off roads. And
Oh, no way.
I'm planning on doing Jeep adventuring this summer.
Really?
In spring.
So now,
and I just, actually, the fishing trip that I was just on, I used it there as well. And it was really good on the icy, crummy roads.
see, I don't know if I'd want a Jeep because that's a lot of pressure because then you automatically get entered into the Jeep club where you got to honk and wave at every other Jeep that you pass by on the road. And that seems like a lot of, that's a big responsibility.
It's the same thing with Volkswagens.
Is it?
Yeah. I noticed it the first time I bought a Volkswagen. It's like all of a sudden all these people are waving at me. It's like, what the hell are you waving at me for?
That's funny.
And Ryan, what about you? Get anything good?
I got a whole new wallet. Because I needed a wallet. I got some chocolate. Nothing. No toys, though. No technology.
No?
No.
Well, it's because you have it all already.
Pretty much.
That's
You're
right.
spoiled.
Yep.
How do you buy something for the guy who's got everything?
Yeah. Well, and she knows better. It's just better that I go out and buy it.
That's true. It's one of those things where we don't need this. Why does he want this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'll get him a sweater instead.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's bring on our guest and banter.
Alrighty.
Well, great. Well, we are really happy to have with us today technically our first show of 2017, incidentally.
So it is.
We are pleased to have Molly Watt with us. Molly Watt is the co-founder of the Molly Watt Trust and director and accessibility and usability consultant of Molly Watt Limited. She's a motivational speaker, an author, and an illustrator of 2 children's books and an avid blogger. She's spoken at events around the world, from the Houses of Parliament to Harvard Medical School and even the Apple campus itself.
Okay, wait. Why is she talking with us?
Just listen.
Yeah, you're way out of our league, Molly.
Sounds pretty cool, doesn't it?
Molly, thanks a lot for coming on.
Hey, thank you for having me on.
So I'm just curious, Molly, you were apparently stuck in traffic. Are you tied up in this whole thing with the transit in London?
So I'm just outside of London, so not quite as mad as London, but where I do live, there's quite a lot of pointless roundabouts and things like that, and I was caught in rush hour. My mum obviously was driving, not myself, for obvious reasons, and yeah, we just so happened to catch the rush hour, and typically we weren't far from where we live, but yeah, it was just all these roundabouts and traffic lights, and yeah, it was pretty horrific. But got home in the end.
Why don't we start out with just telling us a little bit about yourself and your background?
Sure. Okay. So I am 22 years old, and I probably should start with my condition. So a lot of what I do comes down to my condition, to be honest. So I have Usher's syndrome, which is a form of deaf blindness. So it's where you're born deaf. So I was diagnosed with severe hearing loss at 18 months old, and then during adolescence, so at the age of 12, I found out I was going blind also, and it was in fact a syndrome with the deafness. So the blindness is called retinitis pigmentosa, which is actually a really common form of progressive blindness. But with retinitis pigmentosa, also known as RP, put with deafness is Usher syndrome. It's the most common form of deaf blindness. And so really, I think it's been a struggle, really, because this condition is actually quite common, but a lot of people haven't heard of it. It's also an invisible disability. So because of my parents' choice was for me to be oral, so I had lots of speech therapy, and so I've gotten by with communication orally. And then when I found out I was going blind, and to now I've only got 5 degrees vision left in one eye. There's a lot of ignorance that goes, a lot of, let's say, stereotypes about blindness. As soon as you say, yeah, I'm registered blind, they think that you can't see a thing, and it's very black and white. So growing up and going through school was actually quite challenging, trying to get the right support. There was a huge lack of access, basically, and that's where the whole, accessibility passion comes from. Because I discovered once I did have the right access put in place, I was able to succeed, and I kind of just felt that this sort of thing had if a lot more people in my kind of position had the same kind of access, they would be able to succeed also. But there's a lot of barriers in society when it comes down to ignorance or access to technology, or even just knowing what is available. There's many barriers for a lot of people. So I guess it all kind of started with my condition and the passion for awareness of people with my condition, but also invisible disabilities and the challenges that it comes with, mental challenges that it comes with, and just wanting to be more inclusive, wanting society to be more inclusive, wanting the awareness to be out there, and technology, the kind of people to be more open to the idea of having technology help them on a daily basis, and actually it benefits more people than we realise, not necessarily us deaf blind folks, actually quite a lot more people. So I guess what I'm saying is everything I do now is all from personal experience because of the challenges I've had and how I've been able to overcome them. I try to interpret that into my everyday work now, and with the charity also.
So when did you really start advocating seriously?
So with the Molly Watt Trust was set up in 2010, and it was set up really as I was in education. That was where the struggle started, because I was going blind at the age of 12. I started going blind, and I was registered blind at the age of 14. It was really evident that there was no understanding of it in the education system. And it was the same for many other people, many other children in my position. So we were on Facebook and were networking with lots of other people, and it just became very, very clear that there wasn't enough awareness out there. There was support for the deaf and there was support for the blind, but there wasn't support for the deaf-blind. And again, coming back to ignorance, with teachers and things like that in the system also, there was a massive lack of awareness. So we set up the trust in 2010 really to begin with, just to raise awareness of Usher syndrome, because of how common it is, and just wanting people to be more understanding of Usher syndrome. So I basically just put my time into going into local schools, bookshops, hospitals, things like that, just to do a little awareness talks and talk about invisible disabilities, inclusion, how it's okay to be different. And it really kind of just grew quite quickly, and people were quite open to the idea of listening, which is really, really nice to know that people were listening. And then we kind of, as I was discovering with technology, I was able to succeed and do well in my exams. And we wanted to be able to fund the same kind of technology for other people like myself in order for them to succeed. So the right kind of accessibility. So the Molly Watt Trust set about a few projects to raise money to donate Kindles, things like that, so people could access the book, obviously adjust font size and contrast, things like that. Not too expensive either. So we were able to fund quite a few Kindles in the early days, the Molly Watt Trust. So within the first year, we had to raise a certain amount of money for us to become a registered charity, for us to get our charitable number. And we raised that within a year, which was really, really great. So since then, what we've been doing is we've been setting up events, so social events to bring people together. A lot of people with Usher syndrome have never met someone else with Usher syndrome, because people say it's rare, but I don't think it's as rare as people think. But a lot of people that got Usher syndrome haven't met someone else with Usher syndrome. So we try and bring people together, because it's just nice to know you're not alone. So we do a lot of mentoring online and in person also. And then we try and fund like Apple Watches. We've managed to fund, I think, 16 or 17 to date of Apple Watches to people like myself that could do with that independence. So yeah, I mean, we're only a small charity, and that, as I say, was set up back in 2010, so we've been going almost 7 years now. And we just want to make everyday life easier. There's no cure for Usher syndrome, so our goal was really just to make life a little bit easier, everyday life easier for those with Usher syndrome, and raise awareness ultimately. So I was about 14, 15 when I really started doing all that, and I did online videos as well. Started raising awareness through YouTube and things like that also. So yeah, it was really in the early days when I started advocating for people like myself.
Molly, we're obviously over in North America, and our funding is probably different from what you have for funding over in the UK. What kinds of supports and funding are available for assistive technology over there?
So it's not really black and white. It varies depending on where you live in the UK. For me, I, to be honest, couldn't tell you exactly what the funding was. I was quite young. I'm not aware of it. My parents will probably know. But I was able to have a radio aid microphone for the teacher to wear. So I had a little box around my neck for quite a while with wires when I was really young. And then as I got older and technology got better, there were no wires, and I had little devices stuck onto my hearing aids, and the teacher wore a microphone, and that was in a class. So I had that right the way through mainstream school. When I got to boarding school, that was actually a specialist school, so it was a school for the deaf, so everyone had the same kind of support, and that my local authority paid for me to go to boarding school, so a lot of the support sort of came with that. In terms of when I was going blind, support I was given, that was kind of in question for a long time. We had to fight for the right support for me to be able to access my education, so that was an ongoing thing. But eventually I did get I had a laptop in school, and I fought to get a MacBook because Apple and its accessibility has always been my preference. I say preference, but it's all I know. Ever since I've been diagnosed, I've used Apple and its accessibility, and it's what I'm familiar with. So I did get a laptop, a MacBook, which I used in all of my lessons for visual accessibility, and then the teachers would wear a microphone that was directly streamed into my hearing aids.
Now that you're an adult and you obviously have gotten out of the education system,
Yes.
Are there supports available to you now?
Yes. So I go to Moorfield Eye Hospital in London, which is one of the best eye hospitals in the world. I go there every year. I have annual visits there now, and they offer bits of support in terms of low vision clinic. They will offer little gadgetries, magnifiers, and tidbits like that. But I guess this kind of goes back to the point when I talk about the technologies like iPads, laptops, things like that. All the tools for accessibility I need are the built-in accessibilities on these tools that I've got. So I don't necessarily need little magnifiers and things like that for books. Everything I use is electronic, so I don't necessarily benefit from that. There's also social services. They've been round and they've looked at the house and seen how they can make it more accessible. I've had that kind of support, but again, that was a fight because I wasn't disabled enough. So yeah, there's a lot of kind of holes in the system because they say, oh yes, we offer you this because you are registered deafblind, and then they come around and see me and they think that I'm not eligible for it because I seem so able. So again, going back to the stereotypes and lack of awareness in dual sensory impairments, I've had to fight for everything that I've got, and a lot of other people do also. So that's again where the Molly Watt Trust will come in and try and help support that. That's the key, I think, with Usher syndrome, because it's not an obvious condition. A lot of people like myself do communicate orally and appear really visual, so we don't appear to have a really severe condition that actually needs a lot of support, and so we don't get the support. And a lot of people don't have the confidence to actually speak out and say what they actually need. So I kind of find myself being the voice for a lot of people that need that kind of support. So yeah, it's an ongoing process, nothing's perfect, but just got to keep at it, I guess.
Yeah, we have a very similar sort of thing here. There are supports in place, but oftentimes they're underutilized and people have to fight to get what they need.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier, you said that you thought Usher syndrome was a lot more prevalent than people gave it credit for. And I do some work with a group called the Children's Low Vision Project of British Columbia. And we probably see an Usher's kid every second clinic, I would think. It is a fairly common condition.
It is. I think because it starts off with deafness, and obviously deafness in itself is a very common disability. And what they said to me, or they said to my family in the early days of my diagnosis, this is going back to 2006, they said, it's 1 in 25,000 deaf people. And we were like, right, okay. But the more we've gone into it, the more people we've found. And they all kind of come out of the woodwork, especially online and the power of Facebook. And you sort of think, well, I think because the onset of blindness is progressive, and for a very long time you can fool yourself into thinking you can see. Because, I mean, the first sort of 4 years, I'd say, into my blindness diagnosis, I was definitely in denial because I had vision and I appeared really visual. It was a lot easier to just say I was fine and that I could see and I didn't need any help than to actually give in and use a cane and sort of accept that I was going blind. You know, as a teenager, I was just like, no, I'm fine. You know, I can see, it's okay. And it is like everyone I talk to that has RP, because it is such a gradual process, it's very easy to fool yourself into thinking that you can see. And I think for that reason, for a lot of people with Usher, don't actually get diagnosed with it until a lot later on in life, or until something major has happened, like they've fallen over in the middle of the street and they think, oh dear, something must be wrong. And I say that because I've come across many people that were in that position. You know, they're in their mid-30s and they've walked head on into a car, and it's like, oh dear, like this is serious. There probably really is something wrong with my eyes. And thereafter they find out they're actually in fact registered blind. So it's a really scary thought, because, you know, there's people out there that are driving that don't realise that they're gradually losing their peripheral vision, because a lot of people with Usher syndrome do maintain their central vision. I've been quite unlucky with that, but the majority of people I know do still have some. So it's easy, you know, you think, oh, I can see, it's fine, and then you fall over and you've broken your leg, or, you know, you got a bruised eye, you know, it happens.
And what I find is really interesting, and sort of the benefit of the right now is that there are these platforms like YouTube and Facebook and, you know, basically, you know, all the social media that is allowing people to connect on a level much more easier than, you know, the past 10, 15 years.
Yeah. And your sample size is a lot larger too. You know, where people used to gather in a church basement to talk about things, you know, and might get 2 or 3 people together. Now you can get 500-600 sharing information. And so it's a lot easier to disseminate information. It's a lot easier to offer support. And it's probably a lot easier to just get, you know, to gauge numbers. Yeah. I mean, it is. I think this is kind of going back to what I do with my company. That's where actually we're seeing a lot of errors, because where it is actually so easy to just go online for a lot of people and find out information or to connect with other people, not all these platforms are actually accessible to everyone, and so those people are automatically excluded from going online and connecting with people. And, you know, we talk a lot of isolation and mental health and things like that, and with Usher syndrome in particular, because of its progressive condition, it's very easy to fall into isolation and depression and anxiety. Personally, myself, I've got manic depression and severe anxiety. It's not fun, and it's incredibly common with people with Usher syndrome or even just RP. And so a lot of the work I do, it's not necessarily through the trust, but I do hope that it benefits people that obviously we support with the trust also. But I'm kind of consulting with people that build websites and apps and things like that on how they can make their products more accessible for everyone to be able to access, to get on, to connect with, well, depending obviously on the platform. But for instance, Facebook is really quite inaccessible for a lot of people that use VoiceOver on a Mac. It's actually quite shocking. Right. But, you know, you just got to hope they're going to recognize it soon and they're going to adjust that, because Facebook is such a huge platform that everyone uses, and it's a shame that, you know, that group of people are actually excluded from using it.
Well, why don't we back up a little bit and talk about more of the technology? I think, Molly, you've also mentioned in the past using iPad, an iPhone, an Apple Watch.
Yep.
It all ties into your hearing aids. So, like, what does a typical day technology-wise look like for you?
So I wear my Apple Watch every day, and so I would often I probably wouldn't go into the office, but if I had an appointment elsewhere, I often use my navigational stuff on my Apple Watch. So I'll put in my destination, and using the prominent haptics on my watch, it will tell me when I need to turn left or right, and it will talk directly into my hearing aids. So I'm able to feel through my wrist which direction we're going, and I can hear it also. The brilliant thing about these hearing aids, these smart hearing aids, is that they connect to my phone and also my watch. So if anyone's going to ring me or anything like that when I'm out with my guide dog, it will stream directly through my hearing aid, so I don't miss a call or a text message or an email or anything like that. I mean, obviously I don't reply to all these things while I'm out all the time unless it's urgent. So in terms of independence and navigation, the Apple Watch is brilliant for that kind of thing, and also the notifications, phone calls, business calls and things like that. I manage my whole business on my iPad Pro. I do have a MacBook. However, I think as my site has worsened, I've found that the iPad is just far more user friendly. It's obviously touchscreen and just a lot easier to navigate with my fingers, opposed to using a trackpad on a MacBook. So I'll use all the built-in features on the iPad and also with my iPhone. They're both very similar, pretty much the same. So I use Zoom, and I use the display accommodations to change colors so that there's less white and glare to prevent headaches and eye strain. I also use speak screen, so with a swipe of finger it will read out content on my screen instead of me having to read it. And again, that will go straight to my hearing aid, so I will hear it. I have used VoiceOver before, the navigational audio stuff. However, it's with VoiceOver, because it's more for navigation, so everything you touch it reads. Because I'm still quite visual, I will still look for what I'm touching, but it's more to if I'm in an application where there's a lot of reading to be done, or I'm reading a newspaper or article, I'm more likely to use speak screen because it will literally just read out the content. So I will know where I'm at, but I won't. I'll just, to prevent tiredness, will get the screen to be read to me, opposed to having VoiceOver on. So really, technology-wise, it's just my Apple ecosystem. So my watch, my phone, my iPad, and then the assistive technologies that come along with it, my hearing aids. When I'm at home, we have the Ring doorbell. So if I don't hear the doorbell, it again will vibrate on my wrist. A camera comes up on my phone, and I can use the built-in accessibility to zoom in to see who's at my door. I can answer the door through my phone. And it's just a safety aspect as well as well as independence as a deafblind person. Mm-hmm. It all comes back to kind of the Apple ecosystem, and the compatibility with other technologies. Having that Bluetooth connectivity to my hearing aids is crucial. So a lot of the technology that's available for blind people all involve audio, and obviously if you're deafblind, without that Bluetooth connectivity, those technologies are useless. So having these hearing aids make all the difference, having that compatibility. And
I guess that haptic feedback is crucial as well when you're out.
Definitely with the Apple Watch, yes. Everything. I've never ever had a ringtone. I've always just had everything on vibrate. Right. Just because I think even as a deaf person, I've never, without being blind, I've never even considered having a ringtone, and I've always just been more inclined to feel for the vibrations opposed to listening out for a phone call. So it's kind of a natural thing for someone, I think, who's sensory impaired, to feel for vibrations. Which is definitely crucial.
Cool.
Well, the Apple Watch 2 is interesting as well because, you know, I remember when it first came out and sort of the mainstream response to it was, well, this is kind of gimmicky. Like, this isn't really going to go anywhere. And it's sort of ironic that as an AT device, it's actually incredibly powerful.
Yes, yeah. Did you by any chance read my Apple Watch blog?
Yes, I did. I did my homework.
Yeah,
these guys did it.
Well, the only reason,
The rest of us have jobs.
I mentioned that was because the irony was, like you say, everyone was saying how much of a gimmick and waste of money the Apple Watch was, and it was just an excuse for Apple. Apple was just trying to say you need an iPhone, blah 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 blah. And I think my Apple Watch was kind of the first positive review on it, and it was a review based on someone who relies on accessibility, and accessibility thereafter kind of became a bit of a trendy word, I think, in the IT industry, because that blog kind of just went viral. The old Philip Schiller from Apple retweeted it, and as soon as he did, my website crashed to update the traffic or whatever it is called. But it was just crazy because a lot of people, I think it, excuse the pun, that opened people's eyes to kind of what this Apple Watch could actually do to benefit people with other conditions or, you know, sensory impairment mainly. I mean, a lot of people who were blind or deafblind were suddenly emailing into the trust and saying, you know, wow, like I would never have considered this had I not have read the blog. And I myself was really not convinced about the Apple Watch, and I literally bought it out of curiosity. I mean, I should probably mention I was actually working at Apple part-time as a specialist for a couple of years, and it was only because me and my colleagues were kind of like, oh, really not sure about this Apple Watch, even as employees, a lot of us were like, oh, I'm not sure about this, blah, blah, blah. But we all kind of went for it, knowing that we could just return it within 2 weeks if we didn't like it. You know, we were just curious. And so I obviously got it and was pleasantly surprised. And I think a lot more people were also pleasantly surprised. It certainly made a difference for me. And a lot of people that I know that have gone and got one after reading the blog.
Yeah, it almost makes you wonder. It almost feels like it was almost a happy accident. Like it sounds like even Apple was like, oh, geez, wow. Hey, this thing's pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the going to Apple Cupertino was interesting because I think they were just like, wow, you know, it's just so great to know that we are genuinely benefiting a lot of people. And since then, a lot more people have come forward with all these different kinds of conditions and have said, you know, how brilliant the Apple Watch is. I mean, like, for instance, someone, say, with dementia or someone who is diabetic, you know, the Apple Watch can be sending you reminders to tell you, oh, you know, your blood sugar's low or whatever, you need to do this or you need to feed your dog, you know, just routine or reminders for those that might forget it, or someone that has got ADHD and needs reminding, needs routine, and if they don't have routine they freak out, you know, having that kind of tap on the wrist to say, oi, do this. It's kind of just an inclusive and not so invasive way of getting on with daily activities, and an accidental way of finding out how that could actually benefit so many more people in such a different light, because I think people were really skeptical about the whole wearable technology, and actually it's become quite a big thing. Obviously Fitbit and all the rest of it also has done quite well.
Actually interesting because Apple, I don't know, what was it, November? They really did another sort of accessibility promotional push. They released a bunch of new videos and sort of showed off
they changed
a lot
their
of
website. Yeah,
that's right. So, and now, I mean, there's a real feel that Microsoft is kind of doing the same thing. It feels like Microsoft is kind of trying to catch up to Apple in terms of accessibility. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it's definitely evident that accessibility kind of has been quite a trendy word, shall we say, sort of a trend for a while. So I think people are identifying that if they get accessibility right, they are, widening the avenue. There's more people that will use their product, and actually it benefits more and more people. And the other thing about accessibility, which I say every day, or not every day, or when I'm presenting, is that a lot of people think accessibility, they think, oh, we're thinking about blind, deaf, cognitive and motor. We're thinking about people that are all disabled and need some kind of assistance, got assistive technology, blah, 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 blah. It's actually not like that. There's a lot of people. We've got our aging society now, so we're all living longer now, and that's great. But obviously, as we all get older, the eyes start to fail, the ears start to fail, we all start needing wheelchairs. It just happens to us all. And you're not necessarily registered blind. You could be visually impaired, or you could be wearing glasses and you forget your glasses one day. And it's how do you access your emails then? How do you get on with your daily working life if you've forgotten your glasses? And that person isn't blind. They've got something that actually they could use, an accessibility feature to benefit. So there was another example that I normally use. I can't remember what that was. But the other thing I was going to say is obviously you've got things like temporary disabilities.
Right.
So, someone who hasn't got an arm and someone who's broken their arm. Obviously, if you've broken your arm, you've got a temporary disability. You can only use your phone with one hand, or you can only hold a baby with one hand. And how do you access everything then when that hand is occupied? So anyone can have a temporary disability. Anyone can be on medication and feel dizzy and not be able to visually see and access something. A lot of people walk around the streets wearing earpods, but not necessarily earpods, but they listen to their iPods. They're listening to music and they're deafening themselves to the world around them. And we all look at them and think, oh, it's so unsafe, you can't hear cars, you can't hear this. Well, you might think you can, but actually you'll miss it.
Look out, I dropped the piano.
yeah but my point is, when we say accessibility, it's not just that small group of people that benefit from it. It's a lot more people that would benefit from accessibility. And a lot of people say, the app developers, the web developers I've worked with in the past, they don't consider it until the very end, or it's an afterthought, and then it's very difficult to apply these accessibility features. For when they've already got their finishing product, it's really hard for them to then apply it. It should be something that's considered right at the beginning.
Right.
And then, if it's considered at the beginning, they're actually targeting way more people than they realize. They're not missing out people, they're not excluding anyone. And in turn it benefits them, obviously, because it's just a lot more beneficial for everyone to have that access. So it's quite an interesting one. I think we're definitely in interesting times. Microsoft, I noticed they had something on their website also, and obviously Apple have recently changed their website. They have like a specific section called accessibility. So they're really using that word, accessibility. It's quite a big one at the moment, which is great. I mean, it's definitely great. I just hope they sort of utilize it in the right way, to really benefit more people. And not just target the small percentage. What a lot of people do is they think, oh, we've considered the blind people, we've made our product screen reader friendly, there we go, tick the box. Actually, only 5% of blind people have no vision at all and could possibly benefit from a screen reader. So actually, you've not considered the majority of blind people that need visual tools in order to access your your website or your app or whatever it is. Screen readers, for example, I do not use a screen reader, and I'm registered blind. So there are those kind of components to, building a product and making it accessible for those that are blind, and not just for those that use screen readers. There's just, I like to say, lots of grey areas within accessibility, and that's kind of what I focus on at my company. I try and really talk a lot about that to help more people.
Well, and I guess there's a difference really between the idea of accessibility and the idea of universal design, where, universal design is more about just having all those features baked in right at the beginning of any sort of process.
Yeah, accessibility almost denotes that
it's an add-on.
It's an afterthought as opposed to a design element.
Yeah, it's something that shouldn't be an afterthought. It's something that should be more considered, better considered at the beginning of a process, opposed to as an afterthought.
And really, I mean, you're absolutely right in that it's really in their own benefit. Because if you think about text messages, text messages really, they started out as a component for the deaf, and it's
sure.
I'm sure when they first developed it, they had no idea that it would become, the giant that it is now.
Yeah, that my daughter would be locking herself in a room and spending hours upon hours just text messaging back and forth with people who she could actually phone.
Exactly. There's lots of things out there that people don't realise actually is like FaceTime, for example, is another thing that deaf people use as an accessibility tool, because for those that sign or lip read and things like that, that is their way of calling someone. They'll use FaceTime or Skype even.
Right.
And I don't think Apple, when they first built FaceTime, that they ever thought that would actually benefit a big group of people that communicate visually. Yeah, it's definitely recognised now, though. I know that from being trained at Apple.
Right.
They're like, yes, FaceTime's great for signers and visual communicators and la-la-la, which is great. It's good that they've recognised that.
Yeah, because it really, any of these applications, any of these features that they build in have applications in the mainstream as well as applications for those who need AT.
I think Apple's done a good job too, in the sense that, a lot of times, like your example with FaceTime, where they've come out with a new piece of software and then they've seen the application after the fact. They haven't just gone, oh, well, that was neat. They've actually embraced it, and then they've started to work to put features into things that are going to benefit that community specifically as well. So when they do, maybe not intentionally develop something to be accessible, when they recognize that there's a need for it, they grab it and they run with it.
It's great because it also eliminates that idea that a lot of people say that at home that think they need this specialist technology. So, for example, back when I was at school, what they wanted to do, they wanted to give me a Dell computer, an old big bulky one, which would have been about £400. I don't know what that is in your money, but it's quite a cheap laptop. But then they said, right, and then we'll give you JAWS software, which is another £500, and that, because it is specialist software, is so expensive, and a lot of people can't afford that. Whereas that kind of software that enables the same kind of access, if not better, is already built in to these mainstream technologies. And obviously, once Apple, and like we're saying with FaceTime, they've identified that it actually really benefits a lot of people in that kind of way, and they roll with it, they improve it, and they make all these kind of improvements. It stops people from thinking they have to dish out all this money for specialist technology for them to be able to access their emails or access a university course. Actually, it makes you think, well, actually, if I can get one piece of technology that's got everything that I need in it, then why should I pay so much more money for specialist tech? So I mean, that's why, like, you know, when people ask me what it is that I use, and I say it's all mainstream technology, people are actually quite surprised because they don't realize actually the stuff that's already built in, or applications that you can download and things like that, are easy to access. They don't realize that, and it's like, wow, actually that's really cool. It may be a really expensive upfront cost. I mean, we all know iPhones are not very cheap, but in the long run, really, really beneficial on a daily basis.
Well, that is kind of the flip side of it, though. You know, I did a comparison years ago between a Mac with VoiceOver versus a PC with JAWS, and it actually came out price wise to be pretty much a wash, because the Mac products are quite expensive by comparison to PCs. Yeah. Yeah. So you can go either way. I think you can make the case price wise in either direction. It's just the level of access that you want, and how you run your life and how you tie into everything else. You know, in your case, you've got the usage case scenario for going completely on the Mac side of things. You know, it works perfectly for you.
I just had a friend at primary school whose mum worked at Apple at the time, and she worked at the Regent Street store in London, and I'd go around to their house all the time. They just had Macs, and the mum obviously found out I was going blind, and she started showing me how to use these Macs and things like that when I was about 11, 12. And so that's just been all I've known. So I have tried other products, and I do know that there are some other pretty decent products that offer accessibility pretty nicely. But yeah, like you say, it's kind of this is what's worked well for me. I mean, I know from when I was at Apple and I did a lot of workshops, it was a lot of people did come in and say, yeah, you know, I'm changing over to Apple because this just seems to be the way to go. And then you do always get people that are the other way. It is sometimes just like that. I just find it a lot more user friendly, and I think for someone who is blind, simpler is better, especially on the iPads and things like that. I mean, Macs and MacBooks, yes, they can be, if you're going from, you know, PC to Mac, then yes, it can be different. But I've always just kind of recommended iPhones and iPads, to be honest, for basic activities, because it's just so user friendly, and VoiceOver and things like that, it's a lot easier to maneuver opposed to on a MacBook.
I've been a JAWS user since I lost my sight, a PC user since I lost my sight. That's what I'm comfortable with. But yeah, you know, I do have an iPad as well. I also have an Android tablet. I have had an iPhone. I have an Android phone. You know, depending on what your use case is, you know, not one product fits all. So,
well, and I think what's interesting too is that everybody has sort of a different path into AT.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, it's always kind of the experience and where it kind of leads you to what you use and what you get used to and how you strategize with it also. So I mean, a lot of people are like, oh, how do you do this? I'm like, well, I just do it. I just do it. And then I kind of just sit there and have to analyze, you know, the journey I went on, the path, and why I used it and how I used it. And yeah, it can be very different for a lot of people. And that's the other thing I'm constantly saying, is that you cannot put two people that are blind or two people that are deaf together. You know, everyone's got their own needs and their own strategies. So you cannot, you know, tar us all on the same brush. You can't say that we all use VoiceOver, or we all use this, or we all use JAWS. You know, you have to consider the various needs and strategies that people with sensory impairment use.
Exactly.
So getting off of the Mac versus PC thing, have you
fight? Oh, come on.
No, have you had a chance to play with either the Amazon Echo or the Google Home?
Not the Google Home, the Amazon Echo I have. I'm hoping to get the Google Home at some point just to have a little play with it. The Amazon Echo is quite good fun.
Is it?
Yeah, when you're lonely, you can just sit and ask it questions.
Yeah, we can't get one, and we can't get them shipped to Canada yet. So
okay.
I'm still waiting to get one.
Yet.
But
Yeah,
what's your,
I can definitely see benefits with it. I mean, it's handy that you can kind of set it up so that you have, you know, all your station, your local station, kind of timetable stuff on it. So you can literally just go, "Hey Alexa, tell me when the next train to Reading is," and it tells you, instead of me having to go into my phone to find the train station, to find the time, to, you know, all these visual kind of tiring things I would have to look for, or processes that I'd have to speak through voiceover. It's easier to just sit there and ask, you know, an object
Well, and
when my next train is. But I guess the ongoing argument is that I haven't yet figured out is, you know, what can this thing do that, you know, our iPhones can't, you know, through Siri or something like that. But I don't know. I think the speaker on it is pretty good. It would be better if it had hearing aid compatibility. I think for those that are deaf, because obviously the speaker is great for some, but not for those like for me, I could sometimes mishear it instead of knowing exactly what it said. If it was directly streamed to my ears, then that problem would go. Besides that, I think it's kind of there's room for improvement. I think that it could possibly kind of get to a point where it would benefit you even more, as opposed to just asking it to put music on or ask you directions or ask when, you know, Ray Charles' birthday is and things like that. You know, slightly more productive things. That's something I'm still kind of playing around with. But yeah, it's an interesting product. I think it could be really cool, actually.
Does it feel kind of like the Apple Watch in the sense that, you know, right now it's kind of gimmicky and it's limited, but it has a lot of potential in terms of what it could possibly do?
Yes. Yeah, definitely. I think it's definitely got a lot of potential. I think it kind of targets a lot of, say, the older population that they are technophobes and don't really want to go into their phones and go and find something, or, you know, like they just their patience is limited a lot of the time. I found from working with them when I was working at Apple, they get really frustrated with trying to find things on an iPhone or in Safari or things like that, rather than going and getting an iPhone and whatever. I can see how it would benefit the older population in terms of just being able to say, "Hey Alexa, can you read me my email from such and such?" Or, "Hey Alexa, when is my next bus?" I just think that kind of simplicity for that kind of group of people would benefit. But yeah, like you say, I think there is still a lot of room for and potential for it to go even further to help more people.
Well, I know that they're trying to build in. Sorry, Ryan.
No, I was just going to say, at the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas last week, Alexa was integrated into many, many, many different technologies. They all see that using your voice for home automation, such as turn lights on and off, open, close shades, you know, is going to be huge for people with multiple disabilities. Using your voice is going to be a big enabler for people, and if they can use their Echo to do that, or a Google Home device or whatever, that's huge.
Definitely. It is huge. Yeah, I think it would definitely help with the whole isolation issue, like having that kind of connectivity, being able to kind of just use your voice to kind of reach out to someone, even if it's, you know, I think there's definitely a lot more yet to come with all of that, which is quite exciting.
It could be in 10 years, you know, we're living in you know, a smart home, like where you can, you can literally just, you know, like Ryan was telling me yesterday about the CES show, and where you dictate your grocery list to your fridge.
Yep. Well, even like with the Amazon Echo now, you can, create a reminders or, is it reminders? Yeah. And you can talk to your fridge and say, add milk to the shopping list, and it can send that to your phone. They're tying into home automation. So, you can have a door locking, say, Alexa, unlock the door, or Alexa, who's at the door? And it would integrate to your Ring app. And, all sorts of that sort of technology is becoming more and more popular and ever present in many types of devices.
You know what?
It's just great. It's great that it's integrating with all the other, one might see it as assistive technology. Someone else, like say Ring, for example, the fact that it would integrate with that is brilliant. Like it's all kind of coming in together, having that compatibility. And it literally eventually will become like a smart home, won't it? Because one thing will connect to your doorbell, one thing will connect to your fridge, bedroom, bathroom, you name it. It's definitely, I can see a lot of benefit in that for someone with multiple disabilities, or even just an elderly person. And of course you'll always get that big group of people that just will have it because it's really cool.
Yeah, exactly.
And obviously in this day and age there's a lot of people with that kind of desire to have the cool gadgetries.
Yeah, I don't know if I want my fridge talking to me, because, it'd be like, listen, buddy, this lasagna has been in me for like 3 months. There's green stuff growing on it. Will you get it out of me?
You're on a diet, mate. Enough of that.
The other story about Alexa and Google Home that I heard the other day was apparently those technologies are essentially listening to you all the time. Their microphone is always on, listening
that's a scary thought.
Yes and no. Yes and no.
And law enforcement in the States has actually requested from the courts the right to essentially tap it.
Really?
They don't actually listen until you actually use the keyword Alexa. They're on, but they're not listening per se.
Well, they're listening for the Alexa.
Right, and there is a mute button on the device that you can actually turn off the mic. Mm-hmm. So
that's interesting. That opens up a whole new bag of worms.
Well, think of Google, right?
It did, yeah.
We've all given Google all of our information every time we've done a Google search.
Okay. This is all stuff for the conspiracy theory show that we do.
Are we that concerned about privacy?
I
don't think we're that concerned about privacy anymore.
Well, you aren't. You live clean, Ryan.
That's right.
No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, the rest of it, I'm an eco-terrorist. Rob, I don't know what your thing is. You managed to keep a good facade so far.
Exactly.
What we haven't talked about is your children's books.
Oh, yes.
So that really was actually part of a project I did at college. So I did my, I don't know what the equivalence is in Canada, but so when I was 18, I did an art and design diploma and English literature and language A-level. And it kind of was towards the end of my 2 years, and I had to do a final major project. And I don't know, I couldn't really tell you what inspired me to write a children's book, to be honest. I've always kind of been a child at heart, and I've always been very creative and arty, and it was kind of just my outlet, the way I expressed myself was through drawing and painting and things like that. English was kind of more of an interest. I wasn't brilliant at English. I just always really enjoyed it, and I just kind of felt that it was kind of ironic. My subject choices as a deafblind person, English and art. People often laughed and find that really ironic. But towards the end, I decided I was going to illustrate and write a children's book. And the day I kind of sat down and wrote out the storyline, it kind of came out naturally, this whole "it's okay to be different" message. I think it kind of reflected from my own experiences from being the the odd one out, shall we say, when I was at school. I was always just that girl with the hearing aids, or that girl with the guide dog. I was just always a different one. And so I just wanted to kind of inspire inclusion amongst young children, because those kind of experiences do stay with you for life. And so once it was made, like, I literally just had it kind of made on a website. I installed my illustrations and story onto a website and had it made into a book. And through my charity, through all the networking and stuff I did, a publisher came forward and was interested in it. So I got it published, and I donated the book to the trust. And yeah, it just proved to be quite popular, because I think because I went into lots of schools and I spoke about it, I was introduced as an author and illustrator, which I found quite weird, because I had never kind of planned for it to happen that way. It was an accident how it happened. It started off as a college project, and it became a quite success story, and really helped lots of children with, not necessarily with Rett syndrome, but with various disabilities that felt excluded. And so I was just kind of inspired to do a second one, because a lot of people were interested, and now I'm on my third. Literally started it this week.
Oh,
my
wonderful.
third one. So yeah, I mean, I couldn't tell you how many we sold, to be honest with you, because I kind of handed that over to my mum, who manages, does the management of the trust while I do my business stuff. But yeah, it was inspired. I guess it was literally, it's a reflection of my own childhood, being excluded, with the message of it's okay to be different, and, you know, just offer everyone a helping hand when you can. And of course, characters are frogs, because who doesn't like frogs?
Now, are the frogs in the third one?
Yes, they're all frogs in all of the books. I wanted to maintain that they're all the same characters. They're not necessarily sequels; they're all kind of separate stories. But the third one, I will tell you, the three main characters are a bit older now, and so yeah, it is kind of bringing it round to, you know, modern day, and how, you know, today's kids access the world. So it's an interesting one. It's going to be a slightly different approach to what I've done before. So I'm intrigued to see where this one goes.
Well, if you happen to need some Canadian characters for it, we'd like to be portrayed as beavers.
As what?
Beavers.
Beavers, okay.
Beavers.
I'll bear that in
And
mind.
now you travel a lot.
I do.
Where are you off to next?
I've got this month just in the UK. Going up to the north next week to do some work. But I've got Stockholm has just been booked,
Wow.
and possibly going back to Australia in June. So yeah, that's at the moment it's Australia, so probably back to Sydney and Perth, and then Stockholm later on this year. So Europe, conquering Europe, and then going to the other side of the world. Because why not?
Well, have you ever come to Canada?
I haven't. No, I have a friend that lived over in Vancouver for 4 years and absolutely loved it. I've heard nothing but good things about Canada, but no, I haven't been able to get over there. I need an invitation.
Make it happen, Steve.
All right, let's go. Get on over.
Come over, we'll buy you lunch.
Steve's got wine.
Ooh, nice. Yeah, I would. It's definitely on my list. A lot of the travel I have done has been sort of through my work and charity. So I guess that's kind of the dream, to be able to kind of travel and do a bit of work along the way and kind of help people while I can,
Right.
where I can.
And now, anybody who wants to reach out and contact you or the trust, what's the best way to do that?
My website, so mollywatt.com. It's all on there, contact details, or you've got Twitter, the Molly Watt Trust has got its own Twitter, and then I've got my own personal Twitter, which is more my personal career journey, which is Molly Watt Talks. And so it's kind of all social media based. So either my website, Facebook, it's Molly Watt Limited or Molly Watt Trust, and also on Twitter. Also, perfect. I'm everywhere.
Well, you have to when you're conquering the world. It's important to be spread out.
It's a tough job. Got to be done.
Absolutely. Well, and we'll be sure that we link to everything too in our show notes as well. Molly, it was an absolute pleasure talking to you.
Hey, thank you all. Thank you all for having me. And you can probably tell I'm getting a bit of a cold, so apologies if I sound awful.
Oh, you know what? That's okay. It's going around here too.
I'm right there with you.
Well, thanks again, and let's do this again. I mean, we'd like to talk to you again. We scratched the surface, so.
Sounds great. Lovely. Well, take care all, and look forward to hearing from you.
Great. Thanks, Molly.
Thanks, Molly.
Molly. Thanks.
All right. Bye.
Bye. Oh, well, that was interesting.
Well, there's a young woman with her fingers in a few different things.
Very busy.
Holy smokes.
Well, I know. That's why I wanted to get her on the show. I mean, you
22 years old and, around the world, speaking, talking, advocating.
She's got it together. Impressive.
Absolutely. 20. I don't even know what I was doing when I was 22. Nothing.
I was in my first marriage.
Were you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, look at you. You're
actually 23.
Playa.
No.
22.
Worst time of my life.
Oh.
I was fixing photocopiers.
22. I guess I was just going into.
You're in school.
Yeah, I was going into music school. Entering into debt. Ryan.
Rob.
What do we got going on next week?
Next week is Kevin Shaw from Tell Me TV. It's a descriptive online video service, similar to Netflix, but everything is described.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Cool.
All right, Ryan.
Rob.
Where can people find us?
www.atbanter.com.
Well, people can email us at atbanterpodcast@gmail.com.
Ooh, like a boss.
First show of the year, and
we got this first take.
That's right.
And people can find us on Facebook and YouTube and Twitter.
That's right.
But not Pinterest.
Nope.
Or Google Plus.
Or Instagram.
Oh, have we gotten rid of the Google Plus officially now?
No, it's still there.
It's still there, but I'm not updating it. Forget it.
Yeah.
Let's just get rid of Google Plus.
Yeah, all right, fine. I will delete Google Plus.
It has gotten us nothing.
Join us next week for another riveting episode of the ET Banter Podcast with your hosts, Rob Minot, Steve Barclay, and me, Ryan Fleury.
I'm keeping that. That was brilliant.
That was good, wasn't it?
It made me feel like I was watching the A-Team. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening. We will see you all next week.
Bye.
This podcast has been brought to you by Aroga Technologies. Visit Aroga Technologies online at www.aroga.com. That's AROGA.com. Music provided by bensound.com.